If you are pursuing a Hollywood type physique, you really do need to put your focus on your shoulders and your upper chest. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. Of course, I'm starting with a little heavy benching in this one for honorary mention. But when it comes to this topic, you know, you'll get guys who look at this and they'll see these different physiques and like, okay, how do I build that sort of physique? And the obvious is you do need to train everything, okay? Anyone who's telling you to skip body parts, that's going to be a problem. Anyone who's telling you that not to diet or that you can do it without tracking calories or eating clean, they do not have your best interest in mind. So we do need to be clear when we state that you do need to train everything. You need to probably train your calves, your hamstrings, your biceps, everything. You probably are going to need to eat really clean. You're probably going to need to track calories. Now, for some people say, do you need to do cardio? Maybe, maybe not. And that one might be a controversial statement, but it's not necessary for body composition, although I will say for health purposes, you should probably be doing some cardio. If you want to be more athletic, you should be doing some cardio. But as far as your training goes, the areas that you really want to work on are the upper chest and the shoulders. So, you know, delts, side delts, front delts, upper chest. And the stuff that you want to be a bit careful of, if you go look at various actors, if you'll notice, none of them have like bodybuilder quality lower pecs, right? You don't usually see that. Okay, and people are like, well, arms stuff, yeah, they usually have good biceps, but I mean, they're not carrying Arnold Schwarzenegger quality biceps here usually, all right? They usually have pretty wide lats, so you can tell most of them do some pull-ups and lat pull-downs and things. Okay, those things are in there. They're obviously doing curls and other stuff. Most of them do some leg work. They at least want a little bit of quad. So you need to be training everything, and I recommend everyone train their entire body. But if you really look, their lower chests and stuff are not always overdeveloped. You always see a lot of upper chest. Look at Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds. Actually, you know, even look at Thor. Okay, look at all these different actors, all these comic book character actors. Okay, look at the physiques that you see. Every one of them, when it's shirtless, obviously you see the abs and stuff, but you see the upper chest is more prominent than the lower, and they all have nice round delts. You know, they have capped delts. So, you know, what sort of exercises should you really be focusing on? And I'm going to say a lot of incline benching, a lot of overhead pressing, a lot of lateral raises and things, right? Barbell incline, dumbbell incline, barbell overhead press. They could be seated, they could be standing. You can even do some dumbbell stuff. And I would do a fair amount of lateral raises. You probably need to be doing a lateral raise, right? At a minimum, you got to probably be doing incline, overhead, and laterals. And you should probably put a lot of your efforts into that. If you want to bias some of your training towards anything, that's what gives that look. And that's also that same classic. Notice that a lot of their physiques look very similar to a classic Steve Reeves type physique. It really is about the wide shoulders, really is about the upper chest. Okay, and again, we're not saying pecs aren't built. We're not saying biceps aren't built. But you see the V taper and we see the wide shoulders. We see the upper chest. And that makes sense because if we look at evolutionary wise, we look at the body and there's some interesting things in the human body. What do we notice as far as androgen receptors? Androgen receptors meaning what receptors in muscles that testosterone binds to. Okay? So what muscles does testosterone, which would also then by default go to anabolics because they use the same pathways, right? The testosterone does, that's the idea behind them. The androgen receptor density and count is higher in the upper chest, the deltoids, and the trapezius, okay? Those are considered the most masculine muscles accordingly, not because of any sort of gender stereotype, but because of hormones and the way androgen receptor distribution is. So there appears to be an evolutionary thing for that, is that we then perceive those muscles as being very masculine. because that is what testosterone binds to, and therefore historically men with higher levels of testosterone, those areas just tend to be a little more developed. And we're not talking about from lifting weights, we're talking about just from general physical activity that maybe your ancestors had to do just to survive, hunter-gatherers. So those areas are that way for a reason, and it's because they're the areas that stand out from a distance. This is what evolutionary biologists have looked at this and figured this out to some extent. They're like, okay, that makes sense. Okay, that makes sense. So from a distance, we could spot men from other tribes and stuff and realize men that looked a little bigger and more intimidating from that distance had wider shoulders. So the upper chest, the deltoids, the trapezius, those stand out more on a silhouette across a field or across a forest way off in the distance. Therefore, it became a good survival mechanism to recognize that. It was a deterrent to maybe attackers, a deterrent to raiders coming in the night, you know, stealing your women and children. I mean, people have to remember that. Historically, I mean, going back to ancient times, prehistoric, how do you think tribes reproduce? They often came, and yes, there was trading and you know, cross marriage and stuff, but there was also a lot of raiding. They came and stole your children. Okay, stole the younger women. Like this was a thing. So having men that just seemed a little more imposing, others might keep their distance a little bit. And we also came down to leadership, that we perceived that as a stronger male. Okay, we perceived it that way, and therefore important for leaderships within a tribe while avoiding conflict. Because, you know, you don't want that historically everyone to be fighting each other in the tribe. That's not good. So it's just, you know, he's more imposing, a little more intimidating in that regard. Let's just kind of do what he says. And that really, it seems to be part of it. So when we look at it from that perspective, it's like, aha, so those muscles really do. This is then what we perceive as kind of the fit actor, Hollywood, you know, superhero type physique a little bit, right? Is men who work on those areas. Those areas are a little more developed. Not saying to a massive degree, right? Not crazy disproportionate, but a little more focus on there. So I would suggest to guys, if you are pursuing kind of that physique that is then presented to us as an aesthetic, strong physique, put your focus into those areas a little bit. Make sure that you do not neglect them. Right? Again, it's the upper half of your chest, your shoulders, your deltoids, all of that. That's the area you want to make sure that gets hit. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.